Good evening, everyone. We're going to call the meeting to order and begin with our land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge that the ground on which we live is the traditional territory of Caldwell First Nation, of the Three Fires Confederacy, and the original people of Point Pelee and Pelee Island and its surrounding lands and waters, and that of the Huron-Wendat and Wyandot peoples. We recognize and respect the First Nations who are stewards of the land and waters of Turtle Island and who have embraced this stewardship since time immemorial. We would also like to acknowledge the contributions of other nearby First Nation communities and all original people across Turtle Island. We'll now have a moment of silent reflection, followed by the playing of our national anthem. Please stand for the playing of the national anthem. All right, if we can get an adoption of our agenda for the January 27th, 2026 regular council meeting. Moved by Councillor Riccio Spagnolo, support by Councillor Carrick. All in favor? That carries. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest? There being none. Adoption of the minutes of the closed meeting held November 27th, 2025, and the special budget meeting held November 27th, 2025, and the closed and regular meetings held December 9th, 2025 be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Reno and Councillor Segan supports. All in favor? And that carries. And that seems like a really long time ago that we had budget sessions. Mayor's comments, I have just a few for tonight. I want to briefly address the green bin program, as many residents have reached out with questions and concerns. And although the green bin charges do appear on your LaSalle tax bill, this is not a Town of LaSalle fee. The town collects property taxes on behalf of other levels of government, and a portion of your tax bill is sent to the County of Essex to fund county-level services, including this program. The Green Bin program is delivered and priced by the Essex-Windsor Solid Waste Authority, known as USWA, and funded through the County of Essex. Neither the Town of LaSalle nor County Council set the cost. And while the organics program itself has been discussed publicly for some time, the final per household cost was not shared with County Council until December 17th of 2025. And that information was not available during our Town of LaSalle budget deliberations. Communication around the timing of the final cost could have and should have been better, and that feedback is absolutely fair. We definitely could have done a better job. It is important for residents to understand that this program is provincially mandated. It was not created by County Council or local municipalities, and resident opt-out is not an option under USWA's current program. However, the goal of the program, which is something I hope everyone understands, is to extend the life of our landfill and reduce the long-term costs for the region. Council will continue to advocate for clear communication and reasonable costs on behalf of our residents. I'd like to take a moment to thank our Public Works team. This winter has definitely brought significant snowfall, and our crews have been, I don't know how many weeks now. I feel like we've been just in snow nonstop. So thank you for the work in the long hours and keeping everyone safe. And so please pass that on to the team who've worked diligently over the last few weeks. And at the same time, I'm going to offer a small apology because, sorry, Windsor Essex, I really prayed hard for a cold winter when we opened our loop, and I think it's my fault that we've had such the winter we have. So sorry, but not sorry. um, I also want to thank our firefighters for their recent rescue of 2 dogs that became stranded on the ice in the Detroit River. And so, with coordinated efforts, both animals were safely brought to shore and are reported to be doing well. So, hopefully, everything was good there. So, this rescue is a great example of the professionalism and commitment of our emergency crews and a reminder to residents to use caution around ice and waterways. I want to remind residents that the Polar Plunge fundraiser put on by LaSalle Police, which supports the Special Olympics, is coming up next Friday, February 5th at 6 p.m. And I encourage everyone interested to sign up. February 6th at 6 p.m. So I encourage everyone interested to sign up. Yes, it's cold. You get over it quickly. Don't worry. I learned. And if you aren't going to jump, you can still support it by donating towards this great cause or even coming out to support and watch people freeze their butts off. So please sign up for that today and support the Special Olympics. And finally, nominations are now open for our first ever LaSalle Awards of Excellence. These awards will recognize individuals and groups in athletics, arts, culture, community service, business, and many other areas that LaSalle, which makes LaSalle such a great community to live in. So I encourage residents to take the time to nominate someone or a business who deserves to be recognized. Applications are available online, and we do have hard copies at the town as well. We are still taking applications until the 9th of February. So visit the website, learn about that, and nominate your favorite coach, athlete, teacher, business, professional. There's tons of categories. And then finally, the January water wastewater billing is due Friday, January 30th. Many payment options are available and can be found on our website. So thank you again. We have no public meetings and or hearings. We have a presentation today by Crime Stoppers, and we have Rick Surratt, which is our OPP coordinator, Jamie Fumerton, Windsor Police Coordinator, and Greg Rempel, Program Manager for Crime Stoppers, joining us. If you want to come forward. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. And also thank you for meeting with us in the fall. That was a variable. There was a lot of good takeaways with respect to that meeting. That grew legs of its own, and it really allows us to collaborate with Constable Atkins of the LaSalle Police Service to allow us to speak to marginalized groups in LaSalle and identify other resources that you have in the community of LaSalle that allow us to work on our vision for 2026. So given that Crime Stoppers, LaSalle plays an integral role with respect to the success of our program. So we thought we'd just take a few minutes, a very short presentation, to explain who we are and what we do with respect to our program here locally. Next slide. So what is Crime Stoppers? Crime Stoppers is a program that encourages members of the community to report not necessarily crime, but crime leads anonymously. And provide with that, what happens is that we can provide cash rewards for tips that are valuable to the police. Next slide. So with respect to Crime Stoppers, our mission statement is very similar to the police services here locally, in addition to the LaSalle Police Service. At the bottom, you can see it's cut out there, but it's all about community partnership. So we work in concert with media relations or our media partners and also with the community to encourage people to come forward in the spirit of crime prevention. So with respect to the leadership provided by Chief Pierce, our program here locally is very healthy compared to other programs throughout the province. And what I mean by healthy, it's not just we are a charity, but we do a lot of fundraising, and our charity in terms of where we stand with our fundraising is very healthy, but also with respect to the number of tips that we receive per capita, we are one of the higher volume Crime Stoppers in the province with respect to that. Next slide. So our program has been in existence for 35 years. We have a board of directors that are volunteers that are very necessary for our charity to be in existence. We meet monthly with them, and what the board of directors do is they approve the awards that we present to them. We have a program manager who's Greg Rumpel, and we have two police coordinators. Myself, I've been with the provincial police for 28 years, and Jamie Fumerton's with Windsor Police, and he started with us on January 5th. So we work right next door with the LaSalle Police Service, who have been absolutely incredible with our program. They provide us with all the support that we need in order to sustain our charity. Next slide. So the principles of Crime Stoppers, three core principles is that anybody that calls us is that we promise anonymity. So the role of the police coordinators is what we do is we're the gatekeeper of the tips. We ensure that, you can imagine that people reporting crime, it can be emotional at times, and they may inadvertently disclose their address, inadvertently disclose their relationship to the person. But what we do, Jamie and I, is we sanitize those tips and we ensure that we don't disclose that it's, the neighbor that called or whatever. We don't even tell our colleagues that. So we make sure that anonymity is at the forefront of our program and that we protect that. And that is a principle that has been decided by the highest court in Canada, the Supreme Court of Canada in 1997. So that's just not a Crime Stoppers policy. That has been ruled by the Supreme Court of Canada. So also, like I mentioned earlier, their cash reward. Now, for Jamie and I, we have 28 years experience, and I think I would rather shave my head with a cheese grater than testify in court. I'm a cop. I should be able to testify, but it's nerving, and I understand and I respect due process in court. But as an experienced officer of 28 years, it's intimidating for me to testify. Can you just imagine the ordinary citizen who knows something about a crime, who is fearful of court, doesn't want to testify? Well, with the anonymity aspect of things, it really encourages people to come forward. Next slide. So how we started, just a little bit of history. Crime Stoppers was actually started by a Canadian, Picton native, Greg McAleese, who passed away in the fall. But he was working in Albuquerque, New Mexico in the mid-70s, and there was a gas station university student who was murdered, a gas station attendant. And nobody was coming forward, and it's similar to what it is now with that snitch culture. Nobody wants to come forward, so what this detective did was he did a reenactment on television and promised a cash reward and anonymity. Well, what happened is that case was solved. It ended up solving 6 other serious crimes in that area. And that's how Crime Stoppers started. So it's a grassroots police officer who's far ahead of his time in terms of allowing Crime Stoppers to be where it is today. Next slide. So how is Crime Stoppers funded? We don't have any government funding other than what the LaSalle Police Service provides us. In addition to the provincial police and Windsor Police, they provide us the police coordinators. But how we raise our money is generous donations from the community and then also our fundraising events. On the top there, you can see all our various fundraising events that we hold throughout the year. Next slide. So what kind of crime leads can be forwarded to us? Well, there's the criminal code, pretty much everything that's in the criminal code, but we'll also take information with respect to suspicious activity and crimes that are about to occur. So you can see our local high schools where social media and students are talking about a fight that's going to happen at noon hour. On occasion, we can receive those tips and disseminate it to the police and be more proactive with respect to that. Next slide. So there's 3 ways that you can call us to submit a tip. Is you can call us 24/7 every day of the year. 35% of our calls come through our office on the telephone. And then after hours, beyond banking hours, we have a call center that receives those tips as well. There's 2 other means as well as through our website. The majority of our tips are captured through the website, and we also have a mobile app. Now, what we recommend tipsters is they can call us any way they feel comfortable. However, the last 2 with the website and the mobile device is that we can capture Ring doorbell footage. We screen captures from cell phones, things like that. So it's a little more valuable in that sense. So next slide. So how do crime leads go report it? Well, you can just imagine, like I mentioned earlier, the fear of testifying in court, lack of motivation, and embarrassment and reluctance. And there's a lot of misconceptions in the community where people think, well, we have to denounce conduct and put people in jail. But we have mothers who call, they identify their son who's on an image somewhere with respect to stealing, and they just say he needs help. He's an addict, and this is why he's stealing. So, defense lawyers and those misconceptions, they are officers of the court. They make valuable decisions with respect to what's in the best interest of the community. So a mother will call and say that it's their son. Obviously, we don't disseminate that to the police. we'll just say that we received a tip and it's so-and-so, you may want to check it out. So you can imagine if it's a patient, a classmate, a former boyfriend, girlfriend. But what we do as police coordinators is we sanitize that and we don't let the police officers know where the tip came from. And if there's a high risk where it's information that only the tipster and the person responsible know, then we will hold back on that information and not disseminate it because there's a high risk for that person to be identified. Next slide. So cameras are everywhere. You can see just with respect to the Stanley Cup riots in Vancouver in 2011. Next slide. So there's 300 people charged resulting from images that were shared by the Vancouver Police Service on social media. Out of those 300 people that were identified, I think 284 pled guilty right away. And this is a common sense inference is that Crime Stoppers played a valuable role with respect to that. Next slide. So with the images, and I said that, when tips are received either through our mobile app or through our website, the top image, you can see that that's concerning with respect to identifying where that tipster comes from. That's a house on a specific street. Well, what we will do is the bottom image is we sanitize that image, we blur everything out, and we will only send out an image of the getaway vehicle which is driving by. That image is a blurry vehicle, but you'd be surprised how many people can identify that vehicle and let us know. So next image, please, or next slide, please. So what generates tips locally? Next slide. So through our social media partners, our Facebook following in Windsor, Essex for Crime Stoppers, Peel Regional Crime Stoppers, I think they have about 15 or 20,000 followers. That's a large area. But to put it in context, we have almost 10,000 followers on our page. So you can picture the LaSalle Vipers, what the capacity there is 1,000 for a game that's a sellout. We multiply that by 10. That's the amount of people that follow us on Facebook and that share it with everything else. So it's a fairly successful partnership that we have with our social media and then our media partners as well. We also have a Crime of the Week segment that we have with AM 800, and then also with respect to our website as well and CTV. Next slide. So this, for clarification purposes, I'm not going to disclose that this is a Crime Stopper tip case because we're not supposed to speak of tips that were successfully solved by Crime Stoppers. But this is a scenario where you can see the image to the left is disseminated through social media. And we get a lot of tips similar to this where you can understand the resources that are placed upon officers to investigate and to follow up. It's a lot of legwork and officers have to multitask. But with respect to tips like this that we get quite frequently, this can be solved by an officer that's sitting at the desk quite easily. The image on the left is an image of a thief, and you can see the tattoo image just below her chin. Now, every time somebody is arrested in Canada with a criminal offense in a general sense, you're required to provide your fingerprints and your mugshot pursuant to the Identification of Criminals Act. So what we do is we get that image and we look at the mugshot and it's a slam dunk. It is that person. And also there's the same tattoo below the chin. So there's reasonable grounds to charge that person with offense without even leaving the desk area. So that really helps officers with respect to the amount of legwork that's required to solve a case. Next slide, please. So how does a tip work? Well, a tipster will call or submit a tip online. And what we do is we provide them a tip number. So they'll hold that and we tell them to hold it close where nobody else can find that. And then what we do is we being the police coordinators, is we sanitize that tip and we send it to the appropriate law enforcement agency or the Ministry of Natural Resources or the RCMP. And what they do is they investigate the tip. What we tell the tipsters is this will take some time. So for them to call us back in 6 to 8 weeks and we can provide them a update with respect to where their tip stands. Now, with respect to how I said there was 3 ways you can reach out to us, the 2 other ways, we can have a limited dialogue with the tipsters and we can let them know after our boards approve rewards, we can go in the computer and say your tip's qualified for a reward. Please call us during business hours. So the board has to approve the reward and the bank gives out the award through an anonymous number that we provide to the tipsters. So no questions asked. They attend a bank that we tell them to go to and they receive cash. They will never know their identity. Next slide. So how does a tip qualify for a reward? You know, the obvious stuff: an arrest, a charge, seizure of illegal drugs, weapons, or recovering stolen property. But also good information. And what good information can consist of would be something similar to, um, you know, the W5, the who, what, when, where when it comes to drugs, the drug subculture, the drug dealers, whether they have nicknames, cell phones, in what day of the week they travel. Look, for example, the Ambassador Bridge, or where they're doing their deliveries. So a lot of information that we send to investigators, and they'll come back and they'll say, you know what, that information was very credible, and that's going to allow us to get additional funding to investigate this and to get more resources to investigate these drug dealers. Next slide. So when not to call Crime Stoppers, obviously if you're a victim of a crime, we can understand that sometimes we get calls from victims, and what we do is we try to direct them to a support victim-oriented resource that allows them to come forward. And then the other part is also an emergency. We do get people that call us for an active impaired driver. We tell them to hang up, and we call dispatch right away and let them know that this is a license plate and this is where they're headed or whatever. And that's for obvious reasons. Next slide. So for our 2025 statistics, we received over 1,800 tips. That's a 16% increase from 2024. 71 arrests, and this is in Windsor, Essex, and the entire county. 140 charges, or 160 charges, 140 cases cleared, $76,000 in recovered stolen property, and almost $750,000 in drug seizures, and 6 weapons seized as well. So that concludes our short presentation. We're always open to feedback, constructive, anything that, any questions that you may have with respect to our program.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Members of council, do you have any questions or comments? Councillor Burns?
So on your board, do we have any residents from town of LaSalle, or how do you choose your board members? Please, thank you.
With respect to that, anybody from any part of the county, city, whatever, can, you know, apply to be a board member. It does not have to be a resident of any particular municipality. Somebody from Leamington, somebody from LaSalle, Windsor, whatever. There's currently, I am not sure if we have a person from LaSalle sitting on the board. So if you're asking about you know, if we do have a LaSalle resident, I would say I don't. No, we don't.
And how would you advertise that?
It's
Like-
on our website.
So just on the website?
Yep, it's on our website. If we call for board members, like right now currently we have 10. We can hold as many as 20. Twice a year, I think we put something out on our website, you know, and call for board members to send their applications in.
Wait, one further, Your Worship.
Sure.
When you call for those, can you somehow, through the chief or yourself, refer to our website? So residents in LaSalle will at least know they have an opportunity to apply if they're interested. Because
Absolutely.
as of right now, I don't know if you do that.
No, you know, to be
Okay.
perfectly honest with you, this is my first year as program manager. So to tell you that I have all the answers, I'd be lying to you. So that is
Okay.
good information for me.
Yeah.
So I will bring that along to our board and
Thank you
look
very
into
much.
that. No, thank
Your
you.
Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Carrick?
Just real fast. So, sorry, excuse me. Obviously, it looks like it's working, and it's very good. So keep up the good work. And again, through spreading out as much as we can, we'll do what we can to help as best we can, and through our police services and through, I guess, every member of council and administration, we're very supportive. And keep up the good work, and hopefully it keeps proving dividends. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Chief?
Thank you. If Crime Stoppers is looking for board members, we can help advertise on our socials and our website as well.
Yeah, that was along with Mr. Burns' question, is that Greg's vision with respect to the program, and we went with Your Worship back in the fall, and we can acknowledge that it is a crime-driven program. However, our program is throughout the entire county. So Greg's vision with respect to Crime Stoppers is exactly in response to your question, sir. Yes, it is crime-driven, but we understand that we have to represent our program throughout the entire Essex County, and that includes LaSalle, it includes communities like Leamington, and I'm missing out on a few other communities as well, but where we have to be mindful of a representation of the entire county. So we're in line with your thinking, and it's a very good question.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for the presentation. Members of council, actually, there's no motion to receive or anything. That was it. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Appreciate it. Moving into item H1, we have our Parks, Recreation, and Culture Master Plan final version, and I'll turn it over to our Director of Culture and Recreation, Ms. Finero.
Thank you, and good evening, Your Worship and members of council. Tonight online, we have joining us from Monteith Brown Planning Consultants, Dennis Kwan, who should be joining us shortly on the screen. He will be presenting the final Parks, Recreation, and Culture Master Plan. As council will recall, back in October of 2025, Monteith Brown presented the draft of the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Master Plan to council. And then following that presentation, they undertook another public engagement process to gather community feedback from our residents, from user groups, and from stakeholders in order to ensure that the plan reflects the needs and priorities of the community. So tonight, Mr. Kwan will be presenting the final plan, and he will summarize the engagement process that was completed following the release of the draft plan. He will highlight the key themes, input received, and how the feedback influenced the revisions. And he will also identify and explain any changes made to the plan as a result of public and stakeholder consultation. It is important to note that this master plan serves as a strategic roadmap to guide LaSalle in our long-term direction for parks, recreation, and culture. We are not requesting any funding for any specific projects at this time. So there is no capital or operating funds that have been allocated for the initiatives that are identified within this plan. And the document is intended to guide decision-making and support long-term planning rather than commit the town to any immediate implementation. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Kwan to present the final plan.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. And again, my name is Dennis Kwan, Senior Planner with Monteith Brown Planning Consultants. So I will jump right into my presentation. So just as a reminder, the purpose of the master plan is to provide staff and council with a guide that identifies priorities for future investment over the next 5 years. With a longer term outlook towards 2045. So the master plan looks at a number of areas, including indoor recreation and cultural facilities, outdoor sports and recreation facilities, parks, open spaces and trails, and community service delivery. So we've segmented the plan into 4 phases. So we undertook background research and community engagement in phase 1 and 2. So those inputs fed into developing the draft master plan. We then tested it with the public, and their feedback was integrated into the final plan that we have here tonight. So in terms of the master plan feedback opportunities that were available, as it was mentioned, we presented the draft master plan to council at the end of October. From there, the draft master plan was put online along with a summary so people could review it and provide their feedback through PlaySpeak. We held a public open house at the Vollmer in November, as well as we attended a presentation with the Accessibility Advisory Committee to get their feedback. And then residents were also able to provide their feedback in writing through an email link that we had. So in terms of the feedback that we received, there was strong support for the master plan's recommendations. In particular, some of the things we heard was support for making the town's parks, recreation, and culture system more accessible for residents. So that includes everything from removing physical barriers from your parks and facilities to offering more inclusive programming. There's support for expanding the Vollmer to provide more access to space and programs, particularly the pool and multi-purpose program space. There were positive comments for expanding outdoor opportunities at Volmer as well, including adding a basketball court, trails, accessibility features, ball diamond safety, and improving the dog park. Reinvesting in aging park infrastructure was also supported to modernize what you currently have, as well as to improve accessibility. We also heard specific mentions of James Jenner Park and Victory Park. There was some suggestions that those parks need to be revitalized as well, which we speak to in the master plan. As well, there's also support for extending and expanding the town's trail network. Again, both from accessibility, improving accessibility throughout the town and helping to reduce the reliance on vehicular transportation as well. We also received feedback on areas to consider, including needs for other recreation facilities such as BMX pump tracks, football fields, a consideration for protection and preservation of built and natural heritage, including a suggestion was made for establishing a heritage committee. We also received suggestions on strengthening language regarding accessibility and inclusion as well. So once the feedback period ended, we finalized the master plan to incorporate all the comments that we received. So the feedback did not result in any new recommendations. So the changes were all fairly minor. Really, the focus was placed on strengthening language that was already there, as well as to add any additional details to consider as recommendations are brought forward for implementation. So there continues to be 67 recommendations in the master plan that are planned to be brought forward and implemented over the next 20 years. So each recommendation, the master plan identifies what level of priority they should be, what is the timing that they should be brought forward, and what are the resource implications for each as well. So the master plan it's also recommended that the town review the plan every 5 years to ensure that recommendations continue to align with population growth and community needs as priorities may change over the life of the plan. So by approving the master plan, council is not bound to implementing all recommendations. And as it was mentioned, council is not committing any funding at this time. So the plan it's intended to be used as a guide for council to help make your long-term decisions, and staff will bring recommendations forward at the appropriate time for council to discuss and consider the capital and operating requirements at that time. So as a part of implementing the master plan, developing a funding strategy is recommended to look at the town's financial capacity and to identify what is the most appropriate way to fund the recommendations. So this will include consideration as well for external funding sources such as partnerships and grants and things of that nature. So on behalf of the Monteith Brown Planning Consultants, I would like to thank council, staff, and the public for all the input. We certainly had great participation both at the beginning and end of the process, so that gives us the confidence in the master plan and its recommendations. So it really demonstrated that the community is engaged and they're excited about parks, recreation, culture. So we're very proud of the master plan, and we hope that council is too. So I thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Dennis, for the presentation. Members of council, do you have questions or comments? Councillor Segan?
I don't usually enjoy reading 200 pages of a report, but I found this to be quite fascinating and not surprising. To be honest with you, I was really glad to hear that the trail networks and an emphasis on parks, particularly several references to Victory Park, were noted, because I heard a lot about that from residents about the need to refurbish and upgrade. And I realize that this is based on funding and timing because there's different phases that are recommended in the report. But I just wanted to point that out first of all. Secondly, with regard to another ice pad, which is further down the road, of course, With Ontario right now, with open borders in hockey, for instance, LaSalle Minor Hockey knows this very clearly. The cost of playing the game is going to, I think, directly impact how many people we get to come to LaSalle to use the ice surfaces. So I think we need to be careful on what we're charging, what we're for ice time, although I know there has to be a recovery because for every municipality, it's not exactly a profit-making endeavor. It's a service we give to benefit the community. So I just wanted to get that out there because we don't know in this first year of open borders where people can play in any municipality where they're going to go. But they are shopping around. I know that because I get those calls from friends I know in Tecumseh, Lakeshore. What does it cost to play in LaSalle? So that's going to impact directly too. But overall, I am very pleased with the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chispagnola.
Thank you, through you. Yes, I agree. I appreciate the report. I like that the public consultation was included when you had came back to us in October, as well as the accessibility meeting. So that's very important, but I also like the vast the amenities that you have offered here from public consultation that are coming to us, that are requesting the basketball courts, the new skate pad and all that. Again, I know that it's all depending on funding and money totally, but I think that this is a nice framework. So appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Any other? Councillor Carrick.
Yes, the report's very thorough and long-term 20 years is awesome. I think, I just want to be clear, like everybody else has touched on this, I guess it's a master plan, but it's more of a dependent on funding. And maybe perhaps there's an opportunity here down the road to look at public-private partnerships, grant funding to make sure that a lot of this good stuff can be implemented and not just brought up every budget session. I think overall it's necessary, I think, to move stuff forward, but at the same time, we have to explore other opportunities. And I think it looks great and I'd like to have it all, but we just have to be very cautious because I think about 150 million times 20 years or 7.5 million a year, just to put it in perspective. So I just want to make sure that if I got the number right, and I could be wrong, but the more that we can get grant funding, fundraising dollars, the better off we'll all be with moving this forward. Thank you.
Councillor Burns.
The report's okay, but again, in the strategic plan, some of your timelines in here, I don't know where the money's coming from. So I have an issue with that, because with your strategic plan presented, then it's up to council, when administration brings it, to bring it to fruition, one way or the other. And I don't want to give anybody in this room, in administration, or even our citizens, that we're going to go ahead with, I think it's $25 million a year for the next 10 or 15 years. It's out of the question. You're presenting a third pad, and yet I know that my kids have left competitive hockey and are only playing at the house league level, and that in a lot of areas, hockey is becoming a unaffordable sport for people with a mean average of 50 to 80,000. It's just too expensive. So I certainly know that you're not asking today, but with the time frames you put in here, should I be elected another term, I know our administration is going to come back and say, here's the guidelines. And, you know, 2031 is not that long away. And to spend that kind of money that you're looking for, I don't want to give anybody in this room false hopes. So I think I will support it, because inside it says no money at this point. And I want to make sure that everybody knows that and understands that, because going forward it's not going to get easier to get money. We've not been very successful in my tenure here of over 28 years of getting money for these types of projects. In fact, the Vollmer is the only building ever built, and what you envision with all town of LaSalle taxpayers' money. Very little federal or provincial, because as you state in your report, we have a high average for our residents, so we don't qualify very high on federal or provincial grants. And I don't think that was stated well enough in this report. So those are my comments, and we'll go forward from here. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? No. Thank you very much for the report. I thought it was a very good read. I agree with a lot of comments that were around the table. They're very expensive price tags in front of us, but this isn't approving it. This is guiding us. And that's the point, is to guide us into the future so we know what to do. We may see, I think you said in 5 years we need to review it. Maybe our population's changed. Maybe hockey has fallen down to the wayside a little bit, and maybe it's something else. But this is supposed to guide us into the future. And I think that's really important to have this document, because when we go and we look for those funds and we go to our AMO conference and we delegate, having these things available, I think only helps our case in proving that we are looking into the future and we're planning for the future, and hopes that they'll support the projects that we present to them. So I think it was a really great report, and I appreciate the presentation this evening. And like you said, there's no dollar figure attached at this point. So I will leave it at that. And members of council, the recommendation is before you. It's that the report of the Director of Culture and Recreation dated January 8th, 2026 regarding the Parks, Rec, and Culture Master Plan final version be received, and that the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Master Plan be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Segan, support by Councillor Reno. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night.
You too. Item 2 is the 2026 schedule of fees, post-budget update, and our Manager of Finance, Mr. Ferraro, will take that.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. The report before you outlines the proposed 2026 user fees and seeks approval at the bylaw stage of this meeting. The original budget, draft budget, was prepared based on the original report, which included some increases in user fees, in particular in the recreation area. It's important to note that user groups were notified in advance, and we have yet to receive any concerns from those user groups. Subsequent to that, at the budget session, council directed administration to increase user fees by 10%, excluding recreation fees. And this report and the schedule of fees does just that. So we are available for any questions, should you have any.
Thank you very much. Members of council, questions? Nothing? All right, recommendations of the report of the Manager of Finance, Deputy Treasurer dated January 5th, 2026 regarding the 2026 schedule of fees post-budget update be received, and that council endorses the new fee schedule and adopts the fees and charges bylaw during the bylaw stage of the agenda. Moved by Deputy Mayor Capata, support by Councillor Carrick. All in favor? And that carries. Item 3 is the traffic calming policy. Our Supervisor of Engineering, Mr. Bartlett.
Good evening, just trying to get the presentation to load here. Okay, good evening, Mayor and members of council. Tonight, I'm here to discuss the traffic calming policy amendment that we are proposing. Traffic calming is implemented as a measure to reduce speed and volumes of traffic for non-local traffic infiltrating into neighborhoods. It's often used as a safety measure for pedestrians that are crossing roadways as well. So tonight, I'm going to dive into the traffic calming policy updates. I'll provide you with a summary of the recommendation in front of you. I will provide you with the policy process updates and the traffic warrant analysis updates that we have proposed. And then I will finally jump into some of the traffic calming measures that we'd like to see implemented in the town of LaSalle. So the summary of the recommendation presented in front of you is to repeal the existing traffic calming policy and to adopt the new traffic calming policy. The new policy has been made accessible as per AODA requirements, and we revised it to be more efficient in implementing traffic calming in the town of LaSalle. The current policy is quite rigid, and we want to be more proactive to allow traffic calming and ensure that we're doing it in the right solutions based on the concerns we hear from residents and based on the guidelines. So if you can see this chart, this is quite an interesting chart of the traffic calming requests that we have received from 2019 when the first policy was implemented until last year, 2025, the end of the year. We received 36 traffic calming requests that passed the initial screening to say that traffic calming could be reviewed. Unfortunately, of those 36, only 2 of them did we actually implement traffic calming on those roads. So we wanted to go back and review the policy and understand why exactly not a lot of these were getting traffic calming implemented and see what we could do about it. 18 of those didn't meet the public survey. I'll explain the public survey a little bit more in detail on a further slide, but the way it is now, we require 25% of residents to respond in favor of traffic calming for us to move forward with a study and analyze whether we actually want to proceed with traffic calming on that street. Also, 16 of the requests didn't meet the traffic calming warrant. So that's after the public survey we review to see whether traffic calming is actually warranted based on the conditions on site. This chart, which you don't have to read, is the existing policy from WSP back in 2019. So again, as I said, 25% in favor is what we require from residents in their public survey. We often don't receive a lot of comments from the residents, and we think that we need to encourage more engagement with the public through this process. Here's a simple version of our proposed new policy. So what will happen is after the initial screening, instead of jumping straight to a public survey, we'd like to do the traffic warrant analysis first, which can then show us whether we actually can implement traffic calming in that area and provide a proposed solution to the residents. We'll then host a public information center and engage with the residents in the area, showing them the proposed solution that we've come up with and getting their input. The importance of the public engagement will be to educate residents on the traffic calming that we'd like to see and also get their responses on what they might like to see implemented as well. Following the Public Information Center, we'll be able to review the information that we receive, the feedback we receive from residents, and adjust the solution if necessary. Then we can move into an actual public survey after we've engaged with them. And the new survey will change from receiving responses in favor of it to requiring a 50% response not in favor for us to not move forward. So what will happen is after we present the traffic calming solution, we plan to move forward with it unless we receive 50% not wanting to move forward with it. At the traffic warrant stage, so the warrant analysis that the town will provide, we require a 35-point minimum for traffic calming to be implemented in a location. The point system that we have now, we just wanted to make some minor adjustments to it to try and encourage some of the locations that should have maybe got traffic calming that didn't make it. So what we're modifying is points that are donated based on operating speed, traffic volume, collision history, active transportation generators, and school zones. Types of traffic calming measures. So we currently have 3 different types of traffic calming measures that we can implement. And the majority of this is all taken from the Transportation Association of Canada guidelines. So there's type 1, which are less intrusive, they don't cost as much, and they're easy to install. Type 2, which include physical changes to the roadway. And type 3, which are passive measures, which are enforcement and signage. I'll get into some examples of those on the next couple slides. How do we decide what measure we're going to implement? It's all context sensitive. So it's important to review the complaints that we receive, why the traffic calming request has been brought to our attention, and also review the road classification and the users present at this location. Is it a local road, a collector, or an arterial? There's certain measures that we can implement in some locations but not others. For example, on collector or arterial roads, we aren't as concerned about high volumes of traffic because we want to encourage volumes of traffic to use the collector and arterial roads and stay out of the local neighborhoods. Some locations may benefit from multiple types of traffic calming. We may ask the affected residents at the Public Information Center which way they prefer if we have more than one solution. And so here I'll just kind of jump through a few slides of some of the examples. This is a speed display device, so I'm sure you've seen these. The Town of LaSalle Police Department has 2 of these units that are temporary and can be moved around. We often like to use these because they show a reduction of in the 85th percentile of speeds between 3 and 14 kilometers an hour. They're often used in conjunction with enforcement of speeding with the help of the LaSalle Police. We can also look at lane narrowing using paint or bollards. This is again a type 1 measure. So looking at installing bollards and paint markings, these are shown to reduce speeds and heighten the awareness of motorists traveling. They're easy to install and they can be used in conjunction with pedestrian locations. You've actually seen these in the bottom left corner. They've been implemented on Stewart. So these type 2 measures we're jumping into now. The first one is bump outs or curb extensions. These are an example that reduce vehicle speeds by shrinking the width of the roadway. These are often used, as in the picture there, at locations where there's a pedestrian crossing. Another method, type 2, used at pedestrian crossings or at intersections is raised crosswalks. So these are meant to slow down traffic at the location where pedestrians are crossing, again, either mid-block or at an intersection. And they act in a similar manner to speed humps, so they're designed to accommodate the desired speed of the roadway. So for example, if the road's a 40-kilometer-hour road, we want someone going 40 to be able to travel over the speed hump or the raised crosswalk without having to slow down more than what we want them to be at. So I'll jump into this a little bit more of speed humps versus speed bumps. We often receive requests from residents requesting speed bumps in neighborhoods. Speed bumps, you want to think of the Zayres parking lot, the ones in there. They're very abrupt. They make you almost slow right to a crawl. We do not want to install those in our roadways. Speed humps, we are okay with installing in some specific locations. They're designed according to the desired operating speed of the roadway, as I explained. We have a whole methodology in the guidelines that shows how high and how wide to design them so that you can travel over them at the proper speed. Again, we do not want to use these on collector or arterial roads where we're encouraging high volumes of traffic. They're only to be used on local roads where people are cutting through the neighborhood or there's significantly high speeders. So if we receive a traffic calming warrant that does not pass the steps that we've put forward, we can look at passive measures. Passive measures include more signage, 40-kilometer-hour signs, please slow down signs, or just working with the LaSalle Police Department to ensure more enforcement in the area. Another request we often get from residents as part of speeding is always stop requests. Always stops are not used to address speeding, and they should not be a form of traffic calming. Always stops are used specifically to review the right-of-way at an intersection. And if we do receive a request, we will work with the resident to make sure they want either traffic calming, we'll put them down that policy, or we can go back into an always stop request, which reviews based on the volumes of traffic at the intersection. Post-implementation evaluation. So an important step of the traffic calming policy is after we implement traffic calming on a road, we want to make sure that we receive feedback on the effectiveness of the traffic calming measures. So this is actually a photo of Stewart in LaSalle. And the first implementation was the center bollard, as you can see with the 40-kilometer-hour sign. We implemented those, and the feedback we received showed that it was working quite well. However, after a short period of time, the traffic learned to work around them and kind of move outside of them and continued to speed. So we went back and we installed the bollards on the outside edges of the traveled portion of the roadway as well. Now, since we've reviewed it a second time, it's effectively working to reduce the traffic speeds on Stewart. And here's a few other examples of some other traffic calming. These are speed cushions, raised median islands for traffic and for pedestrian safety, traffic circles. And if you have any questions, I know that was a very, I don't know what the word is, but very detailed report. So please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. We'll go with Deputy Mayor Capata, then Councilor Reno and Segan, and so on.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, mine's procedural. So I just want to make sure I understand. So traffic calming comes, it is recommended to happen. 50% for it goes. What's the time frame? And the reason I ask is we always seem to, as of late, get I didn't know, and then council chambers are filled. You've done your procedure, but we get the people here. I just want to make sure that I understand the workflow that you've laid out so that we can be prepared for the folks that may come after that didn't participate, just so I understand how it's going to be laid out. Thank you.
Yep. Through you, Madam Mayor. So, yes, so at the beginning, when we receive the request, we'll do the initial screening. If it passes the initial screening, we'll do the warrant. We will review the affected area. So typically, we are going to send notification to the residents just on that block of the street. That's who we want to engage with the most. What we'll do is we'll send them notification of the upcoming Public Information Center to present the solution. Then after the Public Information Center, that's when we'll send out the public survey requesting their input. And again, yes, we require 50% to respond not in favor for us to stop the traffic calming. If we receive less than 50%, or if we receive more than 50% in favor, then we will proceed with the traffic calming warrant.
And just a supplemental on that, Your Worship. So for renters, who are we contacting? The owner of the property or the person who occupies the actual spot?
I believe it would be both, is what we would. I think we'd be sending to the owner based off of our ownership data, as well as mailing it to the address listed.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Just a quick question on that. Your 50%, just for my own, are you saying 50% of respondents or 50% of the addresses?
50% of the addresses.
Okay.
Yes.
So if we only get 4 responses and 2 say no, that's not
Correct.
okay. Thank you.
We consider a non-response as you're in favor of it.
Thank you. Councillor Reno?
Thank you, Your Worship. You may have just answered part of my question. My question did go back to those percentages. So let's just hypothetically say there are 100 people that live in that block. One person comes in and says, I think I need traffic calming. You will then, before you used to send a letter out saying, hey, do you want us to do this? Now you're going to do the warrant right away just to see if it would work or not. If the warrant says it would work, you're going to send a letter out to those 100 homes and have a PIC. When you have your PIC, 10 people show up. Actually, let's say 40 people show up. If all 40 of those people say they want traffic calming, but actually you answered the question, anybody who doesn't show up is an automatic yes, correct? So it would have to be an overwhelming 50% of everybody on the street would have to show up and tell you they don't want this for this not to be able to proceed. I understand that correctly?
Through you, Mayor Malash. Yes, that's correct. Either in person at the PIC or through the public survey that's mailed out, they would have to respond and send that back saying they're not in favor.
Okay, I will just make a comment. I've always thought that the traffic calming policy was a great thing. I was always very disappointed to see how many got thrown out before they even had a chance. So I think this is going to bring a lot more to the forefront. I will honestly say, and of no fault to administration, I'm disappointed that only 2 streets in LaSalle have seen traffic calming in 6 years. So I am very thankful that you have made revisions to bring more to the forefront and to make this more accessible to our residents. So thank you.
Councillor Segan?
Through you, Mayor, Malash Engineering. I was glad to see that there's the addition of arterial roads. I don't believe it was in the last draft. Is that correct?
Through you, that's correct.
Okay. The reason why I bring that up, I know that we had a front road revitalization project years back, talking about, well, in part about traffic flow. I know in December, approximately December 9th, a young boy on a scooter got hit by a car and was pushed onto one of the lanes of Front Road. And luckily there was no traffic racing through because it is a thoroughfare. Obviously people move from Amherstburg to Windsor and vice versa. And then I saw the police report in December of stunt driving by 2 vehicles, one 106 kilometers an hour, another 94, 96, I believe. I just concern that if we don't look at Front Road, even though it could be a contentious issue because of the fact that it's a very important arterial road, that eventually somebody's going to get hurt seriously. Luckily, the young boy did not get hurt seriously. And like I said, no traffic. We're fortunate. So as a town, I really think that this policy may help us to review what we can do, particularly with the LaSalle land and LaSalle Loop, with the amount of foot traffic and the proximity to the sidewalk and the curb should something go haywire with the traffic there. So I may be introducing something at a later point with regard to that. But thank you for your work on this.
Thank you. Mr. Osborne?
I think I could maybe just add on to a couple of the questions that were asked. First, maybe with Councillor Segan's question about Front Road. It is an arterial road, and it's a whole animal unto itself, and that's something we were really going to be looking at through more of that EA and secondary plan process. So I think that is something that is probably too large of a scope to be part of the traffic calming policy. And then to answer to maybe add on for Deputy Mayor Pata's question about timing and when something happens and someone coming back in and saying, I didn't know about it. I think if it's anything, any measure of substance that has has cost impact, or actually physical changes to the road and curb and things like that, it would likely be coming back to a budget session anyway. So I don't think it would be a overnight implementation. the more significant it is, probably the longer it'll take to actually happen, and it will really be budget dependent. Some of the smaller things that, I don't think would really cause too much disruption, we likely will just be able to do as part of our operating budget and could happen rather quickly.
Thank you. Councillor Richo-Spagnolo.
Actually, thank you. Mr. Osborne answered my questions. Thank you. Timelines.
Councillor Carrick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Two things. First of all, going back to the four-way stop traffic calming, my understanding is it has to meet warrants. Specifically, I think 3 warrants in order for it to be a four-way stop, as we went through this process before. But if you're going to bring it forward and residents are asking and people don't show up, does it automatically come forward, or does it still have to go through that process? Is that changed?
So I think that there's two separate processes. There's traffic calming requests that come in. If someone's requesting a 4-way stop or an all-way stop, that is not part of this policy. That's a separate analysis we can do just from an engineering standpoint. It doesn't have the same process. It's more of a really of a objective thing rather than this is maybe a little more subjective. So we can do a 4-way stop analysis, look at the numbers and say we should be doing this or shouldn't be doing this from a traffic standpoint. So that's a separate kind of process. It doesn't come up as often, but we want to make sure they're different. It's an important note that all-way stops are not a form of traffic calming, and it's not part of this policy.
Thank you for that. And the last one is, so I want to make sure, I think I understand that there's a good example of the bump out. So on Heritage there, going through towards San Jose Parkway, the roundabout. So as you get to the roundabout going from south to north, there's a lane this way, but then it clears back in before you actually get into the roundabout. So it's kind of bumped out and forces you over. Would that be considered what a bump out is? Does that make sense? Because it squeezes you in?
I don't think that's specifically for traffic calming. I think it's just with the way the lanes are changing in there and the way that the active transportation is coming in there. I think that's just the way it kind of ended up, but it does look a bit like what we're talking about. Yeah.
Councillor Burns.
Okay, the question is on a block. What do you mean by a block? So if I use Old LaSalle, a block would be from 100 to 200. So is that what you're referring to, a block for traffic calming? Or if it's, I'll use my street as an example, it goes from 1300 to roughly 1800. So that's roughly 8 blocks. So would I need 50% of those 8 blocks? Or would I need 50% of one block from one corner to one corner? You showed Stewart has 2 of these, and again, it probably goes from 1,000 to 1,700. And you have 2 traffic calming there. So can you explain what a block is so that I'm clear on what that means? Because maybe some of the poor turnout is 1 block over here wants it and nobody else gets notified. So my question really would be, would all of Stewart, when you did that, would they all been notified on 2 of those traffic calming things you put in, narrowing the lanes? With old guys like me might hit the medium in the middle. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So this is a very important part that we often look at, and it's context sensitive. Every single location is usually different because it takes a little bit of just looking at the location and thinking about it. So many of them, the first thing we do is we would say from the first intersection to the next intersection. That's usually where we start. However, for example, Stewart, I believe it was the whole length from Matchett to Malden that we used. And that's because that's where they were experiencing the speeding. It was all the way down. So we kind of take a look into it. We review with the person that made the request and understand a little bit more of where is the concern and what is the best location for the entire analysis. And that's the affected residents.
Just another comment would be, I don't care, that's probably the #1 issue that I hear is speeding in streets like mine, Gulfview, or it doesn't matter, Maple, doesn't matter where, anywhere in the town, the biggest complaint in the 28 years I've been on here. So we can put police on Highway 18 or Front Road. We can put them there at 7 in the morning and you will write 100 tickets like they used to do when they had the OPPs come, City of Windsor come. So you had 15 police cars there and you could just stand there and pick them off. And at 4:30 or 3:30 in the afternoon, when they returned from work, wrote another 50 tickets for the same speed. So it's really not physically possible to have our police service on every street in the town of LaSalle doing this. But I noticed even on Gulfview, the speed is probably more closer than the 50 kilometers, but much closer to 75 to 80 kilometer at any given time during the day. And when you're a retiree and you're working outside and you're talking to your neighbors, oh, there goes another one. There goes another one. So some of this may help, but I really don't know what the answer is to that other than they're on their phones and they're late for work or dropping off at a school. You know, even from Victory to the French school on Matchett, it's crazy. So at least this is a better understanding for most people. And again, not only should we be warranting the people in the concerned area, but also on Facebook and whatever else that we can put that on so people really get an understanding of what's going on and how it's going to affect their neighborhood. So thank you very much for bringing the report.
Did you have something? Oh, yeah. Councilor Reno?
Sorry, just one supplemental. When we started the program, we used to put the results of the warrants on a web page within the towns. Is that something we're going to continue to do so people understand? Will that be part of the public engagement, or will that be something that will be archived that we can then go back and say, listen, this is what happened? What's the plan moving forward with the website?
I'm not sure the exact plan with how we'll present it, but we definitely want to present it on the website and potentially social media somehow to ensure that, you know, the public is understanding of the methods we are doing and the results that we receive as well.
I just found it very helpful, and it seemed to have a lot of data in the beginning, and then it kind of slowed down after that. So I didn't know if that was a change in thought process or policy, but I found it much easier when a resident would contact me and say, what happened here? I put my name in, I did my thing. You could go right to that website and you could click right on the warrant and you could say, well, this is why here are the speeds, you can see it all. I thought it was very, very helpful, and I would encourage you to continue in that course of having something archived that can be explained to people after the fact.
Okay. No other questions? So I have a few comments. Two questions to start. Speed humps. They're okay for snowplows? Because I know that was our biggest issues with speed bumps.
They are okay. They're not ideal, but they can work around them.
Okay, and have we considered doing something similar to what we see in Cabana with the ballers on the side where they have like multiple, there's green ones, they're just, it's right in front of a school zone, so it makes sense, but is that something we've considered, not just the single?
Yep, that's absolutely something that we can do. And again, in the guidelines from TAC, it explains the separation of how far apart and all kinds of details on what types to install where.
Okay. I want to say I really appreciate this report. I've been asking for it for a while, so thank you so much. It's very well done, and I agree with it. I agree with Councillor Reno. It's sad that we've only been able to accomplish 2 in the past so many years. However, I think I was expecting this policy to come along with a traffic calming plan, and maybe that wasn't set clearly. I think what we have now is how we will respond to residents' requests. But what we don't have is a proactive plan that identifies areas and that we implement knowing that they're problem areas. So we're not sitting here relying on residents, that we're showing, yes, we want to help calm traffic in the town of LaSalle. And the reason I say that is because back in November, the province announced $210 million for Road Safety Initiative Fund, and that was to assist municipalities with traffic calming and road safety improvements. So I think that when you see funds like that come, I think you have to have a traffic calming plan in place in order to go for those funds. Because if you don't, what are you applying for? Maybe someone's going to request traffic calming. I think we've identified ourselves several areas in the town that currently need it. And I don't know how we create a plan that addresses the municipality saying, these are areas we know for sure we have to create a policy, and it maybe doesn't involve the residents, unfortunately, maybe it still does. But I think there has to be something on behalf of the municipality, not just sitting back and waiting for the residents to complain. I don't know if other council members feel the same way. I feel like this is a really, really good first step, but I think the final step should be our own plan addressing not only traffic calming in general, but how do we address emergency road closures like Front Road? When we had to shut that down, we weren't ready to take on that traffic in our neighboring streets. And so we learned a lot, but maybe we need to have some sort of policy that we can follow. Same thing is when we have the project in Malden Road coming and we know we're gonna need traffic calming. We already know that we're gonna have people going off into the side area and over at Stewart and Ellis. What are we doing there? So I feel like this is really great in how we're going to deal with the residents' requests, but I think we need to have our own plan and in ways that we are going to implement some sort of traffic calming in the town. Again, I don't know if my council agrees, but Mr. Osborne?
I think when you're talking about like a proactive approach to or town-wide kind of implementation plan, I think a couple things come with it. It would have to be a bit of a more wholesome review with numbers and data to back it up. It's likely something that's maybe more part of an update to our transportation master plan is our first thought. As it is a bit of a fairly decent sized exercise to identify the specific locations, because if we're going to add, we're going to initiate it as opposed to residents, to have support behind it, we'll need to make sure we have the data to back it up. So I think we could probably name some places off the top of our head that we all think of, but we'd probably need to have the backup data to have that. We're really just not set up to do that at the moment. So that could be part of what is an update to our transportation master plan at some point. And then with regards to Malden and Friend, I would agree with you on both those points. I think when we're, from what we learned on Front, when we get into Malden Road, we'll be looking at those types of things when we look at the detours, just to be a bit more proactive about it. That's a little bit more of a kind of case specific situation and be temporary in nature. But as far as what you may be looking for in terms of a plan or implementation plan, that is a bit of a different scoped, kind of a bit of a bigger look, I think, at things than what this policy or what we're kind of able to do at this point in time.
And maybe that's, and I realize that's a lot, you have a lot on your plate right now, but maybe that's something we can put in the queue for future work, because I think as a municipality, we need to be more proactive. And I know I saw, this was last year sometime, the town of Tecumseh had put a social media post out advising of all of these streets that they were going to be installing the speed humps, tables, whatever you want to call them. And I don't know the process. I don't know if they went to residents or if they themselves identified them, but they were doing 4 or 5 at a time, and it's their traffic calming plan for the municipality. And so I'm thinking that that's something we need here, because again, we can wait for residents to come to us, but at the same time, I think we need to do our own thing, knowing where our areas of concern are. And whether or not there's construction there or not, we know what street people cut down to get through and avoid traffic. And so I think I'd like to, and I don't want to ask for a report because I don't need that right now, but I think if we can put that in your back of your head, the transportation master plan is almost
No, well, the transportation master plan was completed in 2018, 19, something to that effect. suggested in there a 10-year update. So that's likely something that would be coming forward in the next couple of years, I would imagine, from a timing perspective.
So maybe if you can keep that in your back of mind when that comes back, to add that in. And in the meantime, if there's maybe another thought process on how we could, as a municipality, achieve this kind of program without a fulsome report where, like you said, if we can identify we've got problem areas, can we ourselves be proactive and install them? So that's, I don't want to report, I don't want to ask for anything formal, but I think that's kind of what I was expecting with this policy, was not just simply, this is what we're going to do when the residents call. That makes sense.
So going along with all of Jonathan's great points there, again, yes, obviously to do an analysis of every street or every neighborhood throughout the town would be quite difficult, especially with the traffic counts and the studies that we would require. However, we do have a list of some of the locations that have been highlighted by residents or by our staff driving around and noticing things. So going into this now, we already have, I don't remember the number, I think it's 7 or 8 that are ready to go on the list the minute that this gets, this new policy gets approved. We're going to jump right into analyzing these ones that we've already heard complaints about or that we've seen on our own. So again, like you said, yeah, maybe in the future, looking at the next time we update this policy or with the transportation master plan, maybe they go together hand in hand when they get updated. But until then, we have a list trying to be proactive on where we know that there might be issues.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because that's kind of what I'm looking for. Is we're aware, we know of the few that have been submitted that maybe we probably should have moved forward with and didn't at the time, and maybe track has gotten worse. And I think if we work a little bit with even police who could definitely identify areas where speeding is a real problem, and I don't want to say I'm installing something on Front Road in Martin Lane, but they had provided me with the stats when we were trying to get that light installed by the county, and it's a significant amount of tickets that are issued in a very small area of all of our road network. So I think we could use that type of information to help us as a town be proactive without going through the entire municipality. And I do not mean like, hey, drive down my street and do a study of how many cars go down the street in a day. That's not what I mean at all. But I think we definitely know of areas of concern that we could move forward with without waiting for a resident to eventually come forward.
Absolutely.
Okay.
On another note, very similar to that, as we're moving forward with subdivision development and the new developments in the areas of town, we're also trying to push the developers and the developers consultants to incorporate traffic calming into their subdivision plans moving forward, so that we're not going back 5 or 10 years after a subdivision's in place and implementing these, so that they're implemented ahead of time, especially for pedestrian connectivity and active transportation and those types of things.
Perfect. That's great. And if you get a chance, check out that Road Safety Initiative Fund. I'm not sure what the guidelines are or who can apply, but it was, like I said, a $210 million fund that was announced when they banned the speed cameras. They created this fund and said municipalities could apply for it. I don't know, again, what stipulations. I don't know if you have to have a plan to be able to apply. I don't know, but worth us looking into if there's some dollars to help us start with those 6 or 7 that you were discussing. So thank you very much. Councillor Burns?
Your Worship, I think you've taken a very strong approach on this. The funding is there without a lot of work. I think maybe a directive to administration is, what are the requirements, and do these 7 locations have any chance of getting funding? Very simple report. Here's the issues we have. We meet all the goals and expectations of the government, the province of Ontario, then let's just apply for it. Because if we know those issues now, we can wait for warrants, we can wait for a master plan. Master plan, to me, if it's going to be developed in 2028, at the earliest, then you're looking at 5 to 6 years before we have the credentials to say we can move forward. I don't think the community's asking us today to move forward where we can. So I don't think that should be a hard exercise. We either qualify or don't qualify in these 7 locations. And if we do, put an application in, and by the luck of the draw, maybe we get the money. That would be my suggestion. I'd be prepared to make a motion to that, to keep it simple, and just see if we do qualify within the criteria presented by the province. And if so, bring it back to council and we can apply for that. Thank you. Somebody would second that as a motion, I would appreciate it.
Okay, you can correct me if we've misstated it, Councillor Burns. That administration bring back a report regarding whether, after researching the Road Safety Initiative Fund announced by the province, to see if the town qualifies for any funding for any of the 7 roads identified by administration.
Exactly. Thank you.
Support by Councillor Reno. All in favor? Opposed? Carries. Okay. Before we move on, we do have a recommendation that the report of the Supervisor of Engineering dated October 31st, 2025, regarding amendments made to the traffic calming policy be received, and that the existing traffic calming policy M-PW-002 be repealed, and that the new policy be adopted as presented. Moved by Deputy Mayor Kapata, support by Councillor Segan. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation and report. Item 4, our janitorial contract, our manager of facilities, Mr. Vasanovich.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. In front of you is a report in regards to the janitorial services. The town has issued a request for proposal for these services for all of our buildings within the town that are currently subject to the contract. These include the Civic Center, Police Station, Fire Stations, and Event Center, as well as an hourly rate for any additional cleaning. The town issued a public call to ensure the vendors had appropriate experience, skills, knowledge, and training to deliver these services. In preparation for this RFP, the Facilities Department met with various town departments. Of the 3 submissions that met the mandatory technical requirements, B Clean Building Maintenance scored the highest number of points and also fell within our operating budget. Available for any questions.
Councillor Reno.
Thank you, Your Worship. I understand that the points are very important for this so that they fit the entire scope of the job. I'm just curious if this price point, did that come in at the lowest, the highest, or the middle?
And maybe I'll turn that over to finance.
After the scoring system, like we get, that comes out last, the financial part. So we don't actually see what the prices are. We see there has to be a minimum score to be able to move to that phase of the process. And then everyone who, meets the minimum threshold to move to that phase through the system, the prices are then opened, it's weighed. I think that was 30% of the mark. And then it combines the scores. But what I can say is there's significant savings over what we currently experience.
That I appreciate. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Carrick?
I think, through your worship, I think Dale just answered that. Are we doing all the above right now that's been mentioned in this report through contracting?
Yes, we are. Through your worship, yes, we are.
Any other? There being none. Recommendations that the report of the manager and supervisor of facilities dated January 9th, 2026, PW-02-2026 regarding be received. And that the janitorial contract be awarded for the bid price of $600,117.34 plus HST for a 34-month term to Be Clean Building Maintenance, and that council authorizes the mayor and clerk to execute the agreement with Be Clean Building Maintenance. Councillor Burns and Councillor Richo-Spagnolo. All in favor? And that carries. Consent agenda, we do have 16 different items on the consent agenda. Are there any items anyone would like to pull out to discuss individually? Councillor Reno?
Your worship, I would like to pull out number 10, the town of Smith Falls, concerning the OCIF funding.
Any other items besides item 10? No, I'm also going to pull out item number 6, Essex Power Lines memo. And if there's nothing else, if we can receive the following items minus items 6 and 10 that we'll discuss. Moved by Councillor Reno, support by Councillor Segan. All in favor? And that carries. Okay, Councillor Reno.
Thank you, worship. When I was reading through and I came to the OCIF letter from the town of Smith Falls, it reminded me of the budget that we just went through. And it reminded me that one of the reasons our tax rate went up was because we lost OCIF funding year over year. And I'm going to ask administration, but I think that was the second year in a row that our OCIF went down, causing a negative impact to our tax rate. So I just wanted to confirm that with finance. What's been going on with the OCIF? I see in their correspondence that you know, it went from one number 10 years ago. It got bumped up in 2022 to a great $400 million pot, or 400, and then all of a sudden I see it getting cut back. So they're looking to make sure that that 400 is maintained for the next 5 years, because now the 5 years are up and there's no talk of what's coming next. I'm just looking for a little intel from the finance department, because I think this is something that would benefit our residents to definitely support.
For sure, through your worship. Yeah, and I think it was 2022, there was an increase in the funding, so everyone pretty much, I think we got double what we were getting before. I think it was about $1 million increase. And every year subsequent to that, we've had a decrease. So it is a formula-based funding. They redid the formula on the most up-to-date census data, and based on that formula, they're shifting the funding to different municipalities. So unfortunately, you know, we do have a higher household income, one of the higher household incomes in Ontario, and that's a large part of the formula. We're also have a smaller rural, geographically we're smaller rural population compared to some of those other municipalities, which is another portion of the calculation. So with that being said, we really don't have any control over that, and we've been experiencing the past 3 years of reduction. So significant reductions, over $100,000 every year. So it's impacting us, and we have to make up the difference with the tax rate.
So just to clarify, the reason that it's been going down is because of shift in demographics. It's not because their fund went down. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's shifting. Some municipalities are having a decrease in their funding, and others are having an increase in their funding.
Okay, I can appreciate that, but at the same time, I do believe that if there's no commitment to hold that fund, there is a chance that it could go down. And if it goes down, no matter what our demographic, our number will go down again. So I personally would put a motion that we support the town of Smith Falls, and we also send this letter to the Premier of Ontario.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Burns? Any other comments on that? All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. I brought forward item number 6, which is Essex Powerline memo that was dated November 27th. And I just wanted to speak to it real quick. Last summer, we received an abundance of complaints regarding power outages, roughly from July until I believe it was almost October, more so than we normally do. So I did go to Essex Power and I asked if they could look into the issues that we were experiencing and if they could provide us with a report. And so this is the report that they prepared for us, where it did identify from July 24th through October 4th, we experienced a higher volume of momentary outages than normal, and explains why. And really, at the end of the day, it was a failure of an underground Hydro One cable that connects to LaSalle and Amherstburg. And so once that was identified as an issue, it had to be repaired, but repairs didn't happen till almost October 4th, which is why we were having so many issues. And so I wanted just to bring this forward because I heard a lot from residents last summer and into fall that they were experiencing it more so than others. And so I did want to make sure that I got an understanding of why we were experiencing that and if there was something that could be done. So it has been fixed. There is a chart in there that shows you the July to October, some of the outages, and everything in red is outside of our distribution area. So meaning it's a Hydro One issue that's caused the outage in the town of LaSalle, and that happens more so than not. And then also, I wanted to highlight, because I know there's always those jokes on social media about the squirrels in the town of LaSalle, but that is actually one of the improvements that are being made, and they're called animal guard trails and rollouts. And so there's pictures of them in this report if anyone wants to look at it, but it's meant to kind of guard the wires in the systems so that when it does come in contact with a squirrel, we don't have the power outages that we're experiencing now. So that is part of their plan going forward, as well as just their regular maintenance that they're trying to increase as well with the tree canopies, trying to make sure that those aren't hitting the power lines. That's what caused those momentary outages. But I did want to make sure that residents were aware that we did receive a report from Essex Power highlighting some of the reasons that we were experiencing more outages than normal. So any questions on that, Councillor Reno?
No question. I just want to thank you for your advocacy, because so many times there's so many comments online about these things. And just from a personal point of view, this summer I changed internet providers, and every time I had a blip, it blew out my entire new internet system, and it took me days and days to figure it out. And I traditionally don't have these outages. I have always considered myself lucky compared to a lot of the things I read online. I reset my clock maybe once a month, but I had 3 in a week, and I was really, really frustrated, and I almost took their side. So it's really nice that we have something on the public record that somebody can go back and look at. And although it's highly technical, it still takes the time to explain in layman's terms exactly what happened. I understood it, so I think the majority of people who read that report can understand that line that goes to Amherstburg is now fixed and should help us all out. So thank you for pushing for that.
No problem. Thank you. So if no questions, if we can just receive that report as well. Received, moved by Councillor Richo Spagnolo, support by Councillor Reno, all in favor, and that carries. Committee matters, we have the appointment to the IRCA Board of Directors. Obviously, the recommendations before you, I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments on it, but we are recommending that Councillor Reno be appointed as Town of LaSalle Council Representative on the Essex Region Conservative Authority Board of Directors for the remainder of the 2022 to 2026 term of council. Moved by Councillor Burns, support by Councillor Richo Spagnolo, all in favor, and that carries. Item 2 is the County Council highlights. Any questions or comments on those? They're from December 17th. It's a hot date. No? Councillor Reno?
I would just like to confirm that I did see some social media posts today from the County of Essex about the Green Bin program, which is very much highlighted in that report. I look forward to more communication coming from the county and the Solid Waste Authority concerning this program. I do understand that they are coming out with more information, so I just wanted to recognize that.
Thank you. Yes, we're being told there was supposed to be something on the 4th, but I believe that may be coming a little bit later in February. But there is definitely more information coming from the county and WUSO. So if we can receive that as well, moved by Councillor Burns, support by Councillor Reno, all in favor? That carries. Any questions or statements by council members? Councillor Burns?
To administration, signage at Sorge Park I noticed the other day, and I haven't been by this week, but there was no signage of the name of the park, and I'm just wondering, been asked by the resident, when will that come? Because they want to be present for the presentation of it.
I don't have the exact date for you. I'll find that out and we'll let them know, and as council as well. I know those are kind of custom made signs. We'll have to look at where we are with ordering that up and getting those built.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Yep. Any other questions? Councillor Segan?
Through you, Mayor, just some comments. In the expansion of my learning curve here, I had a chance to attend the Rural Ontario Municipal Conference last week, or ROMA, as a lot of you are probably aware of. And just to highlight a couple of things that I thought were particularly pertinent to us, the best practices for community safety and well-being. There's the quality of life issues. Talking about key categories of demographics, economics, housing, health, society, and environment. And I found this very informative, and I learned a lot at this conference. It was very valuable. Another one was operating pressures to capital plans, a strategic approach to municipal fiscal sustainability. And they talked a lot about a lot of the new, I guess, policy developments that have impacted the work that particular administration must do to have development charge policy stability. And they talked about Bill 108, More Homes, More Choice Act, COVID-19 Economic Recovery Act, Bill 109, More Homes for Everyone Act, Bill 23, More Homes Built Faster Act, Bill 25, Cutting Red Tape to Build More Homes, and Bill 17, Protecting Ontario, Building Faster and Smarter Act. So it's no wonder that we have so many challenges with so many changes in such a little time. So I was very fortunate to be there for that. And also I look forward to this week, weather permitting, to be part of the Sacred Heart School, a judge for the spelling bee. So I've been reading the dictionary all week in preparation, and hopefully it makes a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. We were judges. Let me tell you though, I'll give you this tip just in case it's a snow day tomorrow, because they say it's going to be Thursday and then I can't go. It's not as easy as you think. It is a stressful situation as a judge. They give you this bell and you have these kids just looking at you with these big eyes and you're like, oh God, it spelled it wrong. And they look so defeated and it's really hard. So hope you don't get the bell.
Trust me, I'm nervous. I've looked up pneumoral ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis just in case it comes up.
Good, good. Glad you're prepared. All right. If there's no other questions or comments, we do have a notice of motion. Councillor Reno?
Thank you, Your Worship. This notice of motion comes out of a conversation that I had with our local MPP right about at our budget time. As we know, we haven't had any increases in MPAC assessments since 2016. And, you know, before that, I owned a home since 1995. Your MPAC assessment would come in every 4 years. Your home would go up a little bit in value. Actually, once it even went down in value for me. But in general, you understood that you had an asset that was worth a certain amount of money and you paid a certain amount of tax on it. But what happens now is that with everything being frozen, basically the town it's on them to show every little bit of inflation. Before, you know, we would have lower tax increases because people would accept a lower tax increase because they understood that their house was worth more and their bill was a little higher. But now, because the house is going up in value, there's no ability for us to recoup those funds without charging a much higher mill rate. And, you know, this wouldn't happen on any other level of government. In 2016, I bought a brand new F-150. It was $65,000. I paid the tax on $65,000. I don't even remember what that amount was. It was just, that was the tax on it. And the tax rate hasn't gone up by now. But here we are later, and that truck's $90,000. I just accept that I'll pay the tax on that 90, but the tax never went up. But the amount that I paid did. And it allows provincial governments to keep up with inflation without putting their tax rate up. And that's where I spoke to Minister Liardi, and I asked him, I said, you know, we've been hearing for many years now, since COVID, that, oh, next year we're going to turn it back on. Next year we're going to turn it back on. I said, is next year here yet? And he said, I don't think so. And I said, well, what, is there an appetite to turn it back on? He said, I don't think so. So basically, it's always going to be on us. And municipalities right across Ontario, everyone is so focused on the percentage that they don't even look at what the dollars are. And we looked at that as well, you know, in trying to get our percentage as low as possible. If inflation of the home would have gone up even 2 or 3%, then we may not have had to make as deep of the cuts as we did. A great example is right on tonight's agenda, where all our user fees had to go up by 10%. That probably, that could cost someone who's renting the event center an extra couple $100, which is much more than the $30 or $40 that overall move created. So when he said he wasn't, their government wasn't looking to reinstate it, I said, what are we going to have to do? He said, my suggestion is to go through AMO. He said, because we do listen to AMO, and if they put 10 things in front of us, we'll dig in really hard to 3 or 4 of them. And I just think that this should be one of those things that they put on their agenda to try to put in front of the government, because until then, I think we will continue to see large increases that people don't understand. And moving forward, I don't see it as being sustainable for any of us, including the politicians up at the front. So with that, do you want me to read the motion first before discussion, or? All right. So whereas MPAC property tax assessments remain frozen at 2016 rates, and whereas inflationary impacts of COVID, rising trade disputes, and the housing crisis have caused a sharp increase in the cost to deliver services in municipalities, and whereas the frozen assessment has necessitated that the local property tax rates be increased to offset the complete lack of growth in property assessment values, and whereas local governments cannot count on assessment growth and therefore have to shoulder larger and larger tax rate increases to meet those deficits, alarming communities and ratepayers, and whereas the decision to phase back in property tax assessment is at the discretion of the provincial government. Now, therefore, the Council of the Corporation of the Town of LaSalle requests that AMO make re-establishing modern, fair, market-valued assessments through MPAC a priority in 2026 when advocating and communicating with the provincial government to move forward with a plan to phase back in property tax assessments prior to the 2027 budget cycle, and that this resolution be forwarded to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario Board of Directors.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Carrick supports, and go ahead.
through to administration. Okay, so hypothetically, MPAC gets on board, the province says, you go ahead, have at her. So you have $500,000 homes from assessed at $250. So they're going to be assessed tax-wise at $500,000. So there's still, taxes are still going up through this assessment. So it's not like we're raising taxes every year. I guess the question I have is, I think we've talked about this probably 100 times before I get too excited about this. Yeah, the new homes, yeah, the older homes. So in order for me to support this, we have the ability to bring the rate down so that it offsets, so that we're not hammering the lower income or the lower value homes and the middle class homes. This is very important. So by supporting this, if they just come through and assess everything, we went through this, but it wasn't called impact. It was called residential versus industrial. Back in like 207, 208, we got a huge increase because we were basically residential. And then we raised taxes on top of that. So I just want to make sure that we are, if I'm understanding this correctly, first of all, through you to finance, that's okay. Thank you.
Through you, your worship. So we look at the general levy. That's what we did this year, every year. So if it was $60 million and we need a 4% increase for inflation and all the other stuff we want to do, we increase it to 62 million. Right now, there's no increase in assessment, so everything goes to the tax rate. If the value of houses went up with MPAC 25% a year, we'd reduce our tax rate because we don't want a 25%. We're not asking for a 25% increase in the levy. So our levy, we budget based on our levy, and then it just falls out from the assessment. So we haven't had an assessment increase, so it's all on the tax rate. If the assessment went up, we're going to reduce the tax rate to where we want it to be. And the issue is not all house assessments will increase by the same amount. So there'll be a shift, which will make some people happy, some homeowners happy, and some homeowners will not be happy. But we have no control over that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I'm guessing the province isn't doing anything at this time. Thank you.
Councillor Burns.
Yes, and speaking to impact at the last AMO convention, they're suggesting that farmland in this new reassessment, whenever they do it, is going to take the biggest hit because farmland across the province has more than tripled. And again, and I've spent a lot of time with both the local representatives and the ones that are at the AMO conferences. So if it takes $1 to run this town and assessment goes up 50 cents, we have to go to 75 cents because that's the value of the money of our $60 million budget. And then it'll be reassessed from there. If we need 10% more, then we're going to raise it 10% more. But what will happen is a house like mine that's assessed at $257, and I pay roughly $5,400 worth of taxes, is probably going to go to $650. And even if you do that, my house is going to go up substantially more because the value has gone up substantially more. And even if you lower the mill rate, I'm still going to get harder. The houses that are going to go down, in my estimation, after talking with Impact, are the $2 and $3 and $4 million houses, the new ones, because they're overpaying. They're paying, even though it was at 216, they're nowhere near I am. And they're maybe $16,000 to $18,000 taxation base on a $2 million home is probably going to go down to $12 million. And the other ones within the town, basically Old LaSalle, we're going to pick up that difference and farmland. So I can't support this motion. And that's the reason why. I know in every impact, since when I bought my house in 85, I paid 106 for it. Impact came out and told me it was worth 110. And they said, fair market value. Well, where is your fair market value? Here's the bill of sale. I didn't get a reduction, by the way. So you don't win those. So there will be winners and losers. And as far as I'm concerned, I'd like the extra revenue, but we do make $1 or $2 million a year in growth revenue. So it's not like we aren't growing our taxation base. So to introduce this now in this environment, with all due respect to Councilor Reynolds, I can't support it, and I'll be voting against it. Thank you.
Mr. Militia, did you have something to add?
Yeah, just further to the comments made by Mr. Langlois in response to the questions asked by Councillor Carrick. Excuse me. one of the challenges, there's a number of challenges that we currently have with the MTAC system. First and foremost, I think Councilor Reno has identified it aptly that the system which was designed to mirror what current value assessment of homes are closely within 4 years. And that is no longer the case. And so from an understandability perspective, it's difficult for our folks that are our customer service representatives that are answering questions from individuals that are moving to the municipality that have the bill of sale of their home that they purchased or constructed, and they constructed it in this year, but it's being valued as if it was constructed in 2016. And from an understandability perspective, that is difficult for folks to understand that, I've just constructed my house, it's $800,000, and you're coming now and assessing at $550,000, or whatever the number happens to be. And so the understandability argument with respect to the current value assessment and how taxation dollars are derived is the exact reason why this system was implemented. Probably, I'm looking at Mr. Langley's probably sometime in 2000, is to get over the the understandability argument for folks so that they could understand that they were taxed on the value of their home, which approximately was indicative of the market value of the home based on a percentage. The other side of that is that I will say in reference to a consistent assessment, it makes it very easy to communicate what tax rate increases are to the general public, because no one's assessment is changing. There's a bad side of that, and I'll come to that in a second. But the good side of that is when we announced that, for example, the municipal tax rate increase this year is 3.47%. When we announced that, it's the same for everyone. Whereas under the system as it was designed before, that was only for the average home. So if you were above the average, below the average, not very many people were at the average, you would come in and say, my taxes went up by 8%, 4%, 3%, and it did not necessarily co-align with what the budget tax rate increase was announced at. And so again, it goes back to that understandability argument that folks sometimes just want to understand, my house is worth X. I'm paying a certain percentage that's coming from the municipality, the county, or the education side, and this is what my taxes are going to be. So I think from that perspective, again, there's two sides to that coin, but we always land on the side that the more information people have and that they can co-align what their property values are in comparison to what the market value is, tends to benefit us, tends to make things a little bit more understandable for the homeowner, because they can relate to the fact of what their market value is. On the flip side, and I think Councillor Burns has alluded to it, because the system has now been out of date for almost 10 years, what has happened across Ontario is that the market values and the impact values are no longer co-aligned. And so now, in order to adjust them, there will be a significant shift that's going to happen. And we see it here in LaSalle. We are one of the high growth municipalities here in Essex County. And so we have a growth number, a raw growth number, more homes being built in LaSalle. That is increasing the assessment base. Yes, that's one part of it. We also, the value of homes in LaSalle are more desirable than in other places in the region and perhaps in the province. So that's increasing at a higher rate. And so what's happening is, and I think Councilor Burns aptly noted, is that homes that are older, that have been established in LaSalle, are far more valuable on a multiple perspective than homes that were recently built. And so that shift is going to happen at some point in time. Whatever system they design, whenever it gets implemented, that righting of the ship, because effectively what's happening at this point in time, which again, the system was designed to guard against as long as it was continued to be updated. What's happening is folks there are some portion of the municipality, some homes in the municipality that theoretically are not paying their fair share of taxes. There are other areas in the municipality that are overpaying taxes. We're still going to collect the same amount. I think I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I think we tax somewhere around 60 or $65 million worth of taxation dollars that we send out that come to the municipality. That's not going to change. But how that dollar gets allocated amongst the properties is what will change. And I think that's one of the things that the government is grappling with, is that because we are so far gone from the 2016 reassessment period, they are now everyone across Ontario, and we are perhaps at the leading edge here in the region. But if you go to the GTA and talking to some of my colleagues that are from the GTA, their issues are multiples of ours. Like they have, where we have, homes that are assessed that the value is probably 2 or 3 times, maybe 4 times what market value is 2 or 3 times of what the actual assessed value is. In other places in Ontario, that's 8, 9, 10 times, meaning that their home is valued at 200,000, but it's actually worth 2 million. And so those shifts are going to be much more dramatic in those municipalities than it is even in ours here, although we happen to have more of that leading edge here in Essex County. So it's not as simple, a simple process. However, again, I would go back to, I think there has to be some encouragement, because for every year that we continue to move away from the 2016 value, that gap continues to be exacerbated. And so, there has to be some reckoning that's going to come. And again, I think one of the things that the province and MPAC is grappling with is how do we make that reckoning less impactful, particularly on those that are on fixed incomes, that are seniors, that are in low income situations, so that they can still have their home and they can still afford to stay there with respect to taxation values. It's not a simple answer. There are points on both sides, quite frankly, and I think we're hearing that tonight so thus far from members of council. There are points to redesign a system that doesn't associate with current value assessments. There's points that say we should. There are points that we should be more in tune with the reassessment value. There are points that says, we don't want to adversely affect some of the lower valued homes, because those are the ones that have seen the highest value of increase. And in a lot of cases, those are the homes that have longtime residences that reside within them, and are typically have more mature residents in there that perhaps may be on a pension or fixed income that can't withstand the dramatic change that's going to happen. So it's not an easy answer. I really don't. I mean, I don't envy the provincial government on most days, but I don't envy them trying to solve this issue. And part of it is it's gone so far, and now the changes or the implementations are going to be so dramatic that they need to not only account for that, but then also account for some system to help that, to help damper that in some way.
Councillor Segan.
I took the opportunity to call MPAC, and I had a chance to speak to some of the agents there. And a lot of what our CAO said and what Councillor Burns said were exactly what I was told. And finance director also gave some pertinent information that was accurate. I mean, it's what comes down to the levy at the end of the day. A lot of they didn't want to commit, but they said, so there's going to be, as it was said here, some are going to gain, some are going to lose. And the losers could be the ones that have been in LaSalle for a long time. So out of respect, I talked to Councillor Reno before this meeting, and I told him I'm going to have a hard time voting in favor of this motion.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, so I do have a mover, I have a supporter, so I'll call to question. All in favor? Opposed? And it fails. Item M, we had our closed session. So council met in closed session early this evening regarding property matters for Fire Station Number 3. Council provided direction to administration. We have 9 bylaws this evening. So the following bylaws be given a first, second, and third reading and finally passed. And that's bylaw 2026-001, 2026-002, 2026-003, 2026-004, 2026-005, 2026-006, 2026-007, 2026-008, and 2026-009. Moved by Councillor Burns and support by Councillor Reno. All in favor? That carries.
I have to commend you, your worship. I would probably invert 3 or 4 of those dash, dash, this and that. So you did a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We just have the confirmatory bylaw 2026-010 be given a first, second, third reading and finally passed. Councillor Carrick and Councillor Richo Spagnuolo, all in favor? And that carries. Schedule of meetings are listed below. Thank you for joining us this evening.